Right, councillors and visitors. There are no fire alarms planned, but the nearest escape route is via the stairs to your left as you leave the council chamber or the public gallery. Exit via the door at the back of the building, walk across the inner car park to the evacuation point, which is the pavement opposite the police station. The lifts cannot be used in the event of an emergency. Please do not re-enter the building until you're advised it is safe to do so by a member of staff. I have to advise both members of the public and press this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live. Mobile phones, please, can you switch them off? Make sure they're on silent or off altogether. Please only speak when I ask you to do so and speak clearly into the microphone. Could you please make sure the microphones are within reach of you? And as I said once before, keep your hands away from your mouth so that everybody can hear what you have to say. Apologise for Councillor Daw was already booked on holiday, which is why, as Vice Chair, I am chairing this particular meeting. Apologies have been received from Councillors Daw, Hendry, Lever, Nicholson, Quigley, and Councillor Price may be late. Are there any other apologies?
Apologies from Councillor Beston.
Are there any declarations of interest from members, starting with the nature of the interest and the item on the agenda to which it relates? We will now go to public questions. Written public questions have been received from Mrs. Richards to the leader. However, Mrs. Richards is not present. Oh, she is present, right. Mrs. Richards, would you like to put your thing? If you go to the microphone, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. At the full council meeting on the 21st of May last week, the leader described the return of children's services to the full Isle of Wight Council control, ending the partnership with Hampshire, as a positive step with successful outcomes. His precise words were that it was a turning point and we're a better authority, a better island and a better community for it, and went on to say that the council are going to repeat it with public health. However, the newly appointed Children's Services team spent over a year compiling and consulting the public on proposals to manage surplus school places. Despite this, the final proposals were rejected at the 11th hour by Isle of Wight councillors in this chamber, the same body who appointed the team in the first place. Given this, how will the council ensure that the incoming Director of Public Health is empowered to lead effectively and that professional recommendations are not similarly undermined by political decisions?
Thank you for your question. I will now ask the leader.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mrs. Richards, for your question. And the council's reply is that as follows: the council's normal governance processes were used to consider the outcome of the consultation and application of statutory processes in relation to surplus school place. The Director of Public Health will be fully supported and professional recommendations will be considered in the normal way, again, using established governing processes. That's the response of the council.
Do you have a supplementary?
I do, Madam Chairman. While bringing services back into exclusive local control is presented as a positive step, does the council also recognise the potential lost opportunities that came with ending the partnership with Hampshire, such as shared expertise, recruitment resilience and resource efficiency? And how does the council intend to mitigate these risks as further partnerships are dissolved in the future?
I will ask the leader to comment, please.
Thank you, Chair. Again, the brief answer to that is that last week, this council moved to a committee system, and there is now in existence a Children's Services Committee with a chair and members of this council, and that those matters from here and from last week will move forward under the auspices as an oversight of that committee. So I can assure you that the work of that committee will take all of those concerns, comments into account as they move forward their working plan to deal with children's services on the island.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Leader. We have one other question, but the resident who put the question refuses to give their name and address. And as a council, we ask anybody putting a question to submit their name and address, etc. So this question will not be asked and will be answered by written email. Thank you. We move on to item 3, question time of the leader and or chair of relevant service committee. Do we have questions for the leader at this stage? Councillor Love.
Can I just clarify in the new system? Previously, it was in relation to the leader's report. So now we can ask questions about anything? No? So can you just clarify that then?
Sorry, I can allow members of full council to ask any questions concerning the business on the agenda, which is the island planning strategy, before entering debate on the subject.
Point of order. The agenda simply says councillors may ask questions orally without prior notice, but to guarantee a written response, etc. I had taken it, therefore, that we were entitled to ask questions on any topic. Is that not correct?
I would need to double check that, Council, but my understanding is questions in relation to the agenda is my understanding.
Would it be helpful, in fact, though, that should have been put on the agenda? It is getting rather farcical sometimes, these meetings, I'm afraid to say.
Yes, yes, that is a good point. We'll take that on board. Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Mosdell.
Chair, could you please remind the monitoring officer, you've told everybody else to do it. Can you speak over your microphone? We spent a lot of time struggling to hear, and actually you're meant to be advising us. So it would be good if we weren't all straining our ears. Thank you.
Question, if there's no ruling, I propose to ask it. If you're ruling against my question, it's not in relation to the island planning strategy. Rule against it if you wish. If you don't wish to rule, I propose to ask it. What should I do?
You wish to ask a question, Councillor Spink?
Please. Thank you. Full council will recall that at the last meeting, the chair, the then current chair of full council, was advised to leave the meeting on the basis that he could not preside over an election in which he had been nominated and also wish to vote. The Isle of Wight Council has been provided with an advice by NELC and ALC, and also an advice by the LGA, that advice, in their opinion, was wrong. And with the council's indulgence, I'll read paragraph 6 of NELC's standing advice. There is no legal prohibition against a retiring chairman from using either his original or his casting vote to vote for himself. And then, I beg your pardon? Would you like to make your a question in due course? Paragraph 8 and 9, and this is my summary, but I've provided the Isle of Wight Council with the original link because I don't want to take up time reading 2 more paragraphs. The summary, which can be challenged if I've got it wrong, but I can assure you I've not, states that it is unlawful to prevent the chair from voting, and any provision to the contrary in a constitution, that's my added part, but any provision to the contrary is also unlawful. I understand, and I've received emails from the council today, that they take the view that NELC, the LGA, and the 1972 Local Government Act are wrong, and that the advice of the council is that this matter should be contested, as I understand it, in the High Court. Is that a responsible attitude, given the difficult financial position that this council is in? Will the council, for a change, use some common sense?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, this question might have been better used in the adjourned meeting to be re-established. But however, as the question has been asked, I will respond. Can everyone hear me? Yep, that's good. In terms of the legal position, I have been in correspondence with Councillor Spink, and I have seen the paper that Councillor Spink refers to. There are many papers and many legal opinions out there. The joke I always make is if you get 5 lawyers in a room, you get 6 different opinions. Yeah, this is the way it works. Now, for my own position as a responsible advisor to the council, I have taken a position. I do not agree with the paper that Councillor Spink referred to. I have taken the monitoring officer view, which I've confirmed with the deputy monitoring officer view. It is our view, and I'm sticking to it. Basically, just to reiterate, the point I made was that if a presiding chair is in the chair when a nomination is received for them and they're in the chair, that nomination would be unlawful. So that's why the chair had to not preside over the meeting. The second part of the jigsaw is the Local Government Act 1972, which basically says very clearly that if the chair of a meeting is in the meeting, they have to preside. So therefore, you had a strange situation where the chair would have to preside, but they couldn't preside over their own election. So the advice was that the chair had to leave. That is my advice. That is what I'm sticking to. And if there are contra views, by all means share those with me, but that is my advice. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, Councillor Spink.
Thank you, Chair. You say that there are many opinions out there which contradict NELC and the LGA's view. You've not cited any of those opinions in our correspondence. In fact, the only authority you rely on from memory, I think, dates back to 1898. Is that right?
That's right, Chair. If I can just clarify that, I don't know what advice the LGA. I've had a very brief discussion with Councillor Jarman. I'm not sure what the question to the LGA was, so I can't comment on their answer. Yeah, so it's very difficult for me to argue about a piece of advice that I've not really seen. In any event, the LGA have not been engaged by this council to advise the council. I have. Yeah? And in terms of the contra views, I have picked up my view from Knowles, which is a leading publication on meetings. And yeah, this is the in-date copy. The one I had was slightly out of date because I didn't get to ordering the newer one, but now my colleagues in Demo Services have got the green version. And basically it says, I'll just read the bit. It says, it is well established that a person who presides at an election is disqualified from being a candidate. And then it talks about R. Owens. The mayor of a borough had presided over the election of councillors and as returning officer had returned himself as one of the persons elected. The validity of the election was successfully impeached. Then it says, and then I'll be very quick, Chair. The next paragraph says, however, if an outgoing chairman wishes to be re-elected, they can provide a substitute to perform their functions temporarily. This is, in practice, is what is ordinarily done, though it means that a person must be proposed as a candidate before the election. If, while presiding, their name is put forward as a candidate, they cannot then vacate the chair because the proposal made while they occupy the chair would be void. It means also that an outgoing chairman wishing to be re-elected must not preside and further must not be in the meeting because if they are present, they must preside. So this is the advice that I have considered. This is the advice that I agree with. And I am afraid I will not change my view on the basis of some unknown LGA view. That is my view, Chair.
Councillor Love.
I had hoped this meeting would take questions because we were interrupted in our previous meeting and there were questions that people wanted to ask at the end. So I do have a question, but again, it doesn't relate to the agenda. Am I allowed to ask my question? Bearing in mind that we've already set a precedence.
Okay, just on behalf of the chair, the chair will allow one more question on the basis that she's not setting a precedent going forwards. It's on the basis that the front sheet could have been a bit clearer, and she's bearing that in mind. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions?
Yep.
Oh, Councillor Love.
So my question was about the floating bridge. 14 months ago, this council agreed to start a process of replacing the floating bridge. And here we are 14 months later, not so much as a nut, screw, bolt or nail has been purchased to replace that floating bridge. And it's reported, which you can correct me or not, that the floating bridge in operations is now losing at least £1 million per year. And it's not been discussed. What are we doing to mitigate against those losses? What actions are we going to take? Because I haven't heard or seen any changes that suggest that that should happen. So, and the second part is, when are we actually going to start the process of replacing it physically, not keep talking about it? And how much money have we spent on that process of talking about it in consultants between 14 months and now? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Love. I must refer to the leader. All I can suggest is that we have a new.
Chair, it doesn't fall under any, as I understand it, any of the remit that I have. There is a committee with a chair for the committee that has the floating bridge as part of its authority and oversight. I would suggest that perhaps that's where it might be directed. It certainly doesn't fall under my remit.
Yeah, this is an historical bit which only you would know about, so I think it's appropriate for you to answer because you've been in charge of highways.
Councillor Julie Jones-Evans.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, there's a report coming to the new committee which I'm very proud to be chairing in July. In fact, I did call you a couple of days ago, Councillor Love, to say that I would update you as soon as I have any more news. I haven't had an update myself regarding the situation, but I did especially ring you up to say that I would be keeping you in the loop of any more information. So that's as far as I know what we're doing next. It's coming to the committee, and we all had an email regarding the procurement process, I believe, week before last. Every single member had that as well. So that's all information I've had at the minute. I've got my first meeting with officers, Council Ward and I, next week for agenda setting. And presumably there is going to be some form of briefing for all members, or definitely the committee members and local members, obviously, as well. So that's my commitment to you, Councillor Love, that I will keep you informed as soon as I've got information. I haven't got much to say regarding the historical element of it, as I wasn't directly involved.
My point is, it's
yeah.
losing £1 million a year and
Hold-
nothing's happening.
Is your meeting before the next council meeting in July? Would you be able to bring a report or an answer to the council meeting in July? Is your meeting before that?
We can provide questions
No.
being asked.
Or, as the chief executive has explained, we can reply with a written response, Councillor Love. Thank you.
Sorry, just a point of order, just for the future. This is an extraordinary council. In the past, we never used to have any members' questions. Recently, we did have over devolution, etc., and I think that was helpful. But it must be made very clear in future agendas that the members' questions are about the agenda item of the extraordinary meeting. Otherwise, we're going to get this ridiculous situation. Now, that should have been clear right from the start, and I hope it'll happen in the future. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Bodie, I agree with you. Possibly my mistake. I now ask the report of the Deputy Monitoring Officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members have got the report in front of them. I just want to clarify some of the procedural errors. I'm not going to not errors, issues. In terms of the content of the report, the content of the report is the content of the report, and I don't intend taking members through that unless you want me to address any issue. In terms of the report, there is a recommendation in the report, which is an officer recommendation. Council could decide to debate that recommendation and approve it or not as a recommendation. It's just as a normal report. But there have been further discussions, and I did send an email round to members because I think it was quite a stark choice. It was basically agree, well, there wasn't a recommendation not to agree, although it was in the options of the report, so not in the recommendations. So what I suggested to group leaders and unaligned councillors was an opportunity for them to consider option A and option B, which is basically agree or not agree. But from my understandings, there's now an option C, which members should have had notification of. And the option C is basically almost equivalent to the option A, which is basically agree, but it's seeking some clarification or some guardrails around what the council says to the inspectorate. So in terms of those options, those are the three options before the council. So you've got the report, so someone can move the report if that's what members wish to do, the recommendations in the report, or someone can move and second the options A, B, and C. So that's the process, Chair.
I will ask for someone to move a recommendation, please. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll move recommend option C. Thank you.
So we have a proposer, councillor Ward, and we have a seconder, councillor Jarman. Councillor Bacon.
I'd like to propose option A, and I've also got a point of information, I suppose, really. Normally, we have options presented on the paper and we go on to discuss those. And we can consider amendments if they're sufficiently close to the suggested option. I don't think in my time in the council since 2009, I can recall a new option, a new recommendation being put forward in this way. And I'm just wondering if we could clarify, because I understand this has come from a member, not from the office who wrote the paper. How are we able to consider option C when it's been generated in this rather unusual way? I believe it only appeared this morning. I was only made aware of it about 4 o'clock this afternoon. So could we clarify that? But in any event, I would seek to propose option A.
Councillor Andre.
I'll second option A.
So
Chair, through you. In terms of the comments that Councillor Bacon made, it is a bit unusual for recommendations to come from the floor, but they can do. It's up to members to decide what they want to do. And it's from an officer point of view, we've just got to make sure that the option before the council is deliverable, and that, you know, that officers have cast their professional eye over it, so that it makes sense and it's not ultra vires or that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I think what I'm going to suggest for members is, rather than go for an option at a time, which could get a bit clunky in terms of trying to debate it, is that you could put option A, B, and C on the table, and then have the debate about them, and then you could go per option. That is one way of doing it. Now, the issue is that if option A is passed, then B and C can't go ahead because council's decided on it. And the same thing applies to option B, if that's passed, or option C that's passed, because only one option can be passed. So what I'm suggesting, Chair, is that you have the debate for all of them and then take a vote.
do one at a time.
Yeah.
So if we have councillor Jarman.
Chair, I understand what the monitoring officer is trying to do, but at the moment we do not have anybody proposing or seconding option B, and therefore we could circumvent his 3 to 2 unless there are other options that people want to present this evening. And I also believe that motions should be taken in the order in which they are submitted. Thank you.
Councillor Mosdell.
It's only a quick question. Do people in the public gallery have a copy that we have of option C? Otherwise, they've taken their time out of their day to listen. Just want to check that they're fully informed. Have they got a copy? Yes, lovely. Thank you.
Councillor Fuller.
Thank you very much. I lived and died by the island planning strategy. The concern that I have is option C has not been looked at by members of the public. To circulate that option this morning is neither open nor is it transparent. And I think that I certainly would have liked to have spoken to other people about option C. I think that my view from reading it in the way that I did is that option C is basically the default position of falling in line with the 1,104, which is far too many houses for the island. So I'm of a view that, you know, putting a paper before the committee before it goes is just worrying.
Councillor Bacon.
Chair, I also have a second point of order. Mr. Fernandez referred to officers looking at this matter. I don't know if they have done so or what their view is, or if we're going to hear that, but I am very concerned about the last paragraph, essentially the last line of option C, which seems to be incredibly uncertain. Without quoting the whole thing, it talks about delegating any decision ongoing to the Policy, Finance and Resources Committee. What does any decision there mean? Does it mean any decision in relation to the content of that last paragraph? Does it mean any decision in relation to the content of the entire motion or indeed the entire paper? And if it does, then surely it is usurping the function of full council by passing something to a committee that is a full council function. I'm really not sure how we can vote on this without having that point clarified. It simply doesn't make sense as it stands.
Thank you. Thank you, through you, Chair. In terms of the last point, I mean, it's a valid point in terms of clarity of the motion. And I think that can be clarified in the debate from, the proposers of the motion in terms of the what is meant by that motion. In terms of usurping the power of full council, it really depends on what PFR will be doing. I mean, for example, PFR would not be able to adopt the island plan. That would be a full council function. However, PFR can do a number of things on behalf of the council if the council asks it to. So it's council delegating to PFR. So I don't see a massive problem with that. It's just that we've got to put some guardrails around it so that PFR doesn't do something that is only a council function, which we wouldn't be doing. But the key is that if this motion was passed, full council would be delegating its powers to PFR. So I think that would be fine. But just in terms of the debate, I think, Chair, we've just gotten to a situation where we're not clear where we are with it, because you need a mover, you need a seconder, whatever you want to call it, and then you have the debate. So you've got the full council's got the choice. You either go for all three and have a debate, or you move one option at a time. But the issue is that if one option is agreed by full council, then the others can't really go ahead. So it's really trying to get the procedural issue back.
Councillor Blake.
Chair, I just have a suggestion when it comes to the vote. Can we do it similar to how we did the election of chairs previously? If there was 3 nominations, where each member gives their preference, one is dropped, or the loser is dropped, and then we go to 2 options after that as a workaround, where to give all 3 credible voting intentions from members.
Yeah, Chair, that is more the runoff process, and in that process you need a majority. But what we can do here is consider all 3 options, if that's how council decided to do it, and then you can take a vote on each option at a time and see who gets the most votes for an option, which demonstrates the majority for that decision.
Councillor Brodie.
Thank you, Chair. This is our first encounter with the way the council now runs. In the past, we would have had a report with a cabinet member's name on the bottom of the leader. This one is from the Strategic Director of Community Services. And in my view, it's up to us what we propose from the full council. We can have as many options as we want. If I decide to put in option X later on, I'm allowed to do it if I can get a seconder. As far as I'm concerned, officers, Mr. Rowland and his team have recommended paragraph 8 and 9 to us in the report. Some people have decided at the last minute that they disagree with that. They're not really empowering islanders by issue I already saw about an hour ago. That's not really empowering the islanders that I represent, but so be it. And they're expecting us to vote on that this evening. In my view, the democratic way to do this, frankly, is that you've had the report, nobody's presenting it, there's no cabinet member. The only person who could have presented, perhaps the leader, but he's washed his hands of things already this evening. So I'm wondering why we even have a leader, to be honest. But we have had one option presented to us, option C, which is by the Empowering Islanders. Well, it was actually Councillor Ward. Sorry, I don't want to taint you with that. Councillor Ward proposed it, seconded by Councillor Jarman. And to my mind, that should be dealt with first. And if it's passed, then that's it. And if it's lost, then we move on to the next proposal, which is Councillor Bacon's, which is option A. And then we debate on that. And if that's passed, that becomes it. If it's lost, then it's over. We've got no policy. And that's the way it would progress. I suspect we'll get a decision before 2 votes. You know, people are either going to support option C or A. I don't think option B is even on the table here. I mean, Councillor Blake says, let's have an exhaustive ballot. Nobody's proposed it. I don't think there's anybody insane enough in this room to want option B. I hope not anyway. You know, perhaps there are. You know, and I'm not being derogatory to people, you know, with mental health issues, but it would be a bonkers decision in my view. You know, so I don't know if that's helpful at all. I'm just trying to be democratic here. You know, let's deal with the Councillor Ward motion, have the debate, and if that falls, then let's move to Councillor Bacon's. That would be the sensible way. Certainly, you know, and I hate to say it's the way I would have done it, but there we go. Thank you.
Thank you for the dose of common sense, Councillor Brodie. I don't know what we'll do without you in the future. I agree. I think that as chair, we make the decision that we will deal with option A first, which is put, C, which was put forward by Councillor Ward. So, Councillor Ward, you have 5 minutes to talk to it. The seconder was Councillor Jarman. Let me just finish, Councillor Jarman, and you can either speak after Councillor Ward or wait until the end of, before we take the vote on the motion. Councillor Julie Jones-Evans, sorry.
Thank you. I just wanted a point of clarification regarding, say, this option C that's been presented to us this evening. The committee, which is regeneration and infrastructure for short and term, that has the responsibility for strategic planning. So I'm just wondering, are we changing the constitution for strategic planning now to go to the policy and finance committee? Is that what's happening? Because I'm a bit confused about this. You know, we're giving powers for the full councils to another committee, whereas there's a committee that already exists where that work is in the constitution. So I know we've got a long learning curve here, but it's really helpful for me to understand what's exactly happening here. And secondly, are we going to have a named vote when it comes to it for the options, please?
If I take the last bit first, do we agree to a name vote? Right, okay. Secondly, as regards the finance, I'll pass it over to the monitoring officer.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. A good point, Councillor, but the PFR committee is the most senior committee of the council. What's being referred to the PFR committee is not strictly planning policy decisions. It's kind of like steps along the way. So the way the architecture of the committee system is that apart from council, the most senior decision-making body, the next one down is PFR. So I think it's within council's gift to delegate that to PFR should council wish to do that.
Councillor Bacon.
So, and I raised a point of order a moment ago, and there was a very helpful answer from Mr. Fernandez, but I think it just needs to nail that down. I understood that there is an issue in saying delegate any decision, and I think what was being said, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that therefore, before this can be voted on, it does need to be amended in some way to clarify what any decision refers to, because it can't mean any decision. It means any decision within a certain bracket. So I would suggest perhaps before we debate it, that clarification should be given so we know what we are actually debating. Maybe Councillor Ward, if he's proposing this, would like to clarify that in what he says. But it was clear for Mr. Fernandez that we can't vote on this as it stands because of that phrase, any decision. That's what I understood the advice to council to be.
Chair, if I haven't got a comment on that.
Yeah. Chair, okay.
Needs clarification.
Chair, if I, sorry. Points well made. What I suggest is that council can make a very brief alteration so that what's delegated to PFR is not anything that is within the remit of the full council only. So basically, if it's a full council decision, it can't be delegated. If anything else can. So if you accept that as an alteration, councillor, and if the chamber agrees with that as an alteration, then I think you can go ahead to debate.
Councillor Brading, if after Councillor Brading, we will go to Councillor Ward to put forward his petition. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Just one quick point. Can we stop referring to PFR? Because members of the public listening haven't got a clue what PFR stands for. Can we give these subgroups or the service committees their correct titles? But this is a really important issue we've got to discuss this evening. It's a one agenda EGM, and it's now just gone 7:15. We haven't even started to talk about the important issue yet. Can we just stop arguing about process and get on with discussing this vital issue for the island and move it forward, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Chairman. I didn't actually compile this option, so I wouldn't want to comment on that last sentence, but I do understand Councillor Bacon's point. It does seem a little uncertain who's going to make the decision, so I do think that needs to be amended. I'd like to hand over to Councillor Blake, if that's okay with you.
Councillor Jarman, do you wish to speak now or later? Right.
I'll speak now, Chair. I'm very happy to do that. But I wasn't sure what Councillor Ward just said. Are you happy to pass over to me then? It doesn't work quite that way, but.
Just a moment. Did you want to confer?
No.
No.
Chair, sorry, my understanding was that Councillor Ward was
Councillor
nominating me
Blake,
to speak
have
on
you
his
got your
behalf.
phone number? Mic on. Yep. Right. Fire.
So thank you, Chair. So my taking was that Councillor Ward's nominating me to speak on his behalf. So I thank Councillor Ward for putting his hand up. So I didn't quite understand the question from the monitoring officer.
Point of order, Chair. Chair, point of order. Constitutionally, it's the only time that a mover can pass on something is during a budget debate. Councillor Ward has spoken. It's now for the seconder who has said he was about to speak. Councillor Blake can speak later, but he's not the mover, so he's not going to get the 5 minutes. He gets the 3 minutes, that just the same as I get later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Broder. Right, Councillor Ward has moved the motion. Councillor Jarman. As the seconder, do you wish to speak now? I'm sorry, or did you say you would speak later?
I'm happy to speak now if you want me to, Chair. Good. Thank you. So just to clarify a few things, the genesis of option C in terms of the implications of each of the options was first raised at the member briefing, which was given on the 19th of May with the planning officers. We examined there the implications of the two initial options that were on the paper and the deliverability of them. The paper I put out this morning summarises those discussions and amplifies them with details of the alternative debate which occurred. The question on that day was about the deliverability of 75% consistently over a number of years of either option A or B, both of them in our mind being wholly undeliverable, and I believe that was agreed without question in that online session. The question then came up, what would be the result of effectively some sort of a do nothing option? Now, legally, we cannot do nothing because we are obliged to actually provide a local plan. To do nothing in some context means an alternative reply to the planning inspectors. Option C provides that alternative reply to them. What it does is to say that we as an island have grave concerns about the mechanism which is being employed here. Options A and B rely on figures effectively dictatorial by this government upon us as an island in terms of delivery. We believe they are unsustainable and undeliverable. the evidence which we as a council have put forward in our plan was based on very substantial evidence. The figures portrayed by the government are not evidence-based, are not deliverable, and do not meet the needs or ambitions of this island. So option C reflects that. It effectively kicks it back to the inspectors and says, we don't agree, we are not willing in many ways to be the implementers of a policy which would retain us within the tilted balance indefinitely. Moreover, we believe that this is a grave error of process, and in combination with other authorities, we would seek to engage with them and to challenge this view by the current government, which we believe to be wrongly thought through, without merit in terms of the evidence base it's based upon, not to be local in terms of it's a national figure which is arbitrarily assigned to the island. And for those reasons, we believe that a judicial review in combination with other authorities has considerable merit, and we are not the only authority to have mooted that option. So option C is commended here. It basically throws the issue back to the inspectors with a very clear message that we are not willing to take this path. We do not believe it is a binary choice. We want another option, including the option of a judicial review. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cho. Now, Councillor Modsdale.
Thank you. So everybody's going to wonder what I'm saying. I'm not going to vote for option C. Reason being is, I think that the officers, one, I'd like to say thank you to the officers who did some really good sessions for us recently. Mr. Brewer spent a whole afternoon, and thank you to Mr. Dix to actually sitting there and making sure that we went through all the parts and what was going on with the strategy. It was very open door, so we could go in and talk about it. And some of the things that were really clear is planning officers understand, you know, I'm trying to think of a polite way of saying it, or we can't, they have challenged already that we can't build these numbers. We don't build these numbers. If anybody's been to a bank lately to borrow money to do any building, you know, you have to jump through so many hoops. That's the reason why we aren't actually building all across the island, because it's not possible to do it. But I also remember back how long we've been working on this. You know, I had a huge amount of respect for Councillor Abraham and the amount of work that he did with officers. This feels like it's been going on forever. And we have policies that are going to come out of date soon, and to have council officers working on them again, renewing them. There is nobody in this room that actually thinks that suddenly we're going to wake up tomorrow, there's going to be a shed load of money sent to us, and we're going to be able to build 1,100 houses. It's not going to happen. You know, when my residents write to me, I say to them, focus on the actual plan, the good stuff is in there. So we've got option C, and I went to the meeting and I understand where everybody is coming from, but actually this option hasn't been structured by officers. I like things like the bit that says delete draft policy C11, net zero development, or replace either a generic policy. This is thought by officers on what we actually need to do, which is sensible options. Option C just seems to me, again, just being fixated on numbers that's a pipe dream, of which when we went to the sessions run by the planning officers, they've already written and challenged that repeatedly. You know, the officers can't do any more than what they are doing, saying these numbers are just ridiculous. But we need a strategy, and I like the other bits in option A that actually say the changes that need to be done that are sensible. So there you go. If everybody questioned what I was doing, I'll go and have a nap now.
Thank you, Councillor Modsdale. We now have Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Chair. It's very, very depressing where we've got to with the dips. Not least of all, it's taken 8 years spanning 2 elected councils and a huge amount of officer time to get to the plan that was submitted. There were genuine differences of opinion within that whole process. And indeed, not everyone voted for the dips that we submitted, but it did have the democratic backing of this council, of a vote of 39 ward councillors representing everyone on the Isle of Wight, with a figure to increase the amount of housing that we build year on year on this island. So it delivered on an objective that not everyone was comfortable with, but it nevertheless delivered on that objective of increasing housing. To be then told by an unelected quango that that figure is not acceptable, I have a major, major problem with. What is the point of putting democracy into these decisions if they get slapped down by an undemocratic government body that sits off the island, that has no accountability for trying to force us to build 703 houses, which we cannot build, we don't need, and is simply undeliverable. So there's no way I could agree to going back to the planning inspectorate, rolling over and saying, we will take your direction over this democratically elected body. Option C has the attraction of not simply rejecting the island planning strategy and having a merry-go-round with a Labour government that wants us to build more than 1,000 homes on the island. It allows us to go back and express that clear opinion that we don't accept we can build all those additional houses, but we nevertheless stand behind our draft island planning strategy. I'm of the view that would be the vast majority of island residents would back that position. I suspect it's where most of this council want to be, because that's what they voted for. And I would say to any councillor, why on earth would you roll over to the planning inspectorate and just say, yes, please, we'll have what you've made us do after 8 years of us working on it? So I will back option C, because I think it sends a strong message back to the planning inspectorate. We stand behind the dips, but we don't agree with the housing numbers that you're trying to force us to build that we cannot build and we do not need. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Chair. This proposal for option C has been a coming together of a couple of groups who had a similar view, and we sort of managed to blend it together, and it has had officer scrutiny. And I'd like to invite the CEO to perhaps comment on how the officers may interpret this at some point in this debate, if that's possible. This option is, we were elected to stand up for our residents, and I can't sit here and say that I willingly vote for a number of houses that this island cannot obtain. We will still remain in special measures if this number is adopted, because we cannot build 75% of the 703. So it's, and we were standing up to the government enforcing a number on us that we know we cannot deliver upon. So that's why we've come up this option C to say that very strongly. Again, we back the dips. It has some blooming good policies in that do need to be brought ahead, but we cannot accept and willingly vote for 703 houses a year to be built on the island when we know that that is not physically possible. And that message needs to go back to the planning inspectorate to say, get in the real world. The Isle of Wight cannot take 703 houses a year, or even 75% of that number. So that's why we'll be backing option C.
Councillor Cameron.
I'm the councillor for Freshwater South. The government insists that we need to deliver between 703 and 1,104 dwellings per year on the Isle of Wight. The enlarging of our West Wight settlement boundaries ignores our unique protected landscape, our precious green corridors, and the devastation it will cause to our wildlife and protected species. Such extreme development will destroy our area forever. We all know we need social housing, and that affordable housing actually needs to be based on average island salaries. We can't build the masses of unwanted, unaffordable housing, houses to be bought by anyone who the developer can sell to, including more retirees and second homeowners. Practically, we can't deliver 703 or 1,104 houses annually. The logistics are unsurmountable, and our planning department and the council is facing an impossible position. These targets mean we will always be in the tilted balance. We are an island and we have unique, significant problems with building here. We need to fight for our own special circumstances. These new proposed estates ignore the lack of village infrastructure we have, the lack of social resources for our current residents. Ferries are hugely expensive, jobs are scarce and poorly paid. Our cliffs are crumbling. The Military Road, one of the most iconic roads in Europe, is falling into the sea. There is no place for the grey water to go without flooding or polluting our protected River Yar or out of the cliff, which in itself will increase our coastal erosion, putting more houses at risk. We have sewage problems with our rivers and seas. We're running out of drinking water. We can't get onto the NHS dentist list. Our doctors are overwhelmed with our ageing population, and you know there's a problem when you're number 100 on the phone queue. Doctors choose not to live here under that pressure, together with the prospect of a failing school system for their children. Our education system continues to fail. Isle of Wight schools have some of the lowest educational standards in the country. We have a high SEN rate and live with constant threats of school closures. People visit my area in the West Wight for its beauty, its open spaces, for its inspiration, its nature, its history, peace and tranquility. People don't visit to see mass housing estates from our downs. These estates will destroy our most important industry, our vital tourist industry. Our social care budget is already 80% of our huge council tax bill, and we haven't the money to fix our problems. We need to find a sustainable solution using our brownfields without ruining our only asset we have, our green spaces. The government demands aggressive development targets for us, but where is the government money to fix our infrastructure, fix our NHS, get water, educate our young, and look after our elderly? I'm going for option C.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Chairman. I remember when I first became elected back in 2021, I was re-elected. And one of the issues that a lot of residents back then said to me was, how are we going to cope with a government that is targeting 1,045 homes per year for the Isle of Wight? That was the previous government, Joe, just to remind you. We now have a new government. They have the same housing targets as the previous government had, 300,000 homes per year, which they wanted to build. I spoke to a lot of members, and a lot of members on both sides of this chamber. And one of the things they said to me was, Paul, that housing figure that is being suggested for the island, 1,045, is just not sustainable. We're never going to be able to build those. We're setting ourselves up to fail. So what I tried to do was I went out to consultation, spoke to residents across the island, spoke to councillors across the island, spoke to local town and parish councils. And one of the priorities that we had was to suppress that high number that was unachievable. We got that number down to 453. Now, that number, 453, was still a lot higher than a lot of people wanted. And I can understand that. You know, I really can understand that. I think with the when we had our core strategy, that number was about 525 at that time, but we still wanted to get that number to a reasonable level. 473 was as low as we could possibly provide the evidence to government that we had the right number. We failed with that. The government inspectors looked at it, Quangos or whatever, they looked at it and they said, well, in light of the new figures that the new government's brought in, we feel that that is far too low. Perhaps if we passed the island planning strategy 3 years ago, when we had done all the work and when the officers had done all the work, we might have been looking at a lower figure. But that time has passed us by. There was a lot of deferral, a lot of delay on that, and we are where we are. And that is one of the reasons why we're looking at a figure now of 704. From my point of view, with the island planning strategy, we have planning policies, as Councillor Cameron has asked. We don't have the same policies in the previous document. We have policies to protect our coastal communities from development and making sure that that's right. We have policies that will put local people into local homes first. We worked with Councillor Brodie on some of those things. We've got proposals to protect our green gaps as well. I'm not going to say anything more because I've overspent my time, but it's been a hard slog.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Vice Chair. First of all, can I just congratulate Councillor Cameron on her first speech in this chamber? It's a daunting thing to do, and I remember mine back in 1991. Been around a bit. Councillor Cameron makes some very sound points around government funding and about the role of democracy in achieving the aims that we all in this chamber want to achieve. Homes for island people first, because they are in the most desperate of need. But I don't mind people coming from the mainland, but I don't want them to have that priority over people who have the connections to our island. I need to take up Councillor Robertson on his musings that somehow the planning inspector is undemocratic. Now, Councillor Robertson is a member of the House of Commons. The House of Commons is the sovereign body, one of two, that creates legislation and passes legislation. The planning inspector's responsibilities and duties and powers derive from a democratic process. I appreciate it's not yet a year that Councillor Robertson has been in another place, but he needs to come up to speed upon the nature of democratic devolution of powers, may I suggest. I cannot support option C. Option C does not come with any kind of sensible risk analysis of what this might mean when we go if we were to place it before the planning inspectors. It doesn't properly address what the planning inspectors have tried to do for us. And I certainly don't like what they're telling us that we really need to do, but they set out in paras 10 and 35 of their letter that they are setting out a pragmatic approach for us to have a plan in place for this year. And in para 35, they are setting out the consequences of unsoundness of our plan if we pursue another pathway. And I think that is where Councillor Ward, although I think he is the proxy here for others, is seeking to seduce us down that pathway. I feel rather that what's happening here is kind of like, to use Greek mythology, the sirens are calling to us, but they will drag us upon the rocks. And those rocks are real. They will lead to us having a situation where we do not have a plan in place, except we do have a plan in place, and that plan is old, it's outdated, it's not fit for purpose. And it is fundamentally, the way it's set up, a developer's charter. So those who would seek to protect us from the developer are the most who want to take us down the road which will help the developer. That is the question before us. I do not like everything that the inspectors have said, but I understand that they are trying to help us with an interim plan, and they have set out the consequences of what it is. And the democratic thing to do is to understand that advice and take on board how it has been analysed by council officers, and then use our sound judgment. I will not vote for option C.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Garrett. Now have Councillor Love.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I think the conversation that we're having demonstrates just how conflicted we still all are right across this island. So as soon as we start to mention housing numbers, it creates all kinds of different emotions within people. The fact is that we need the right kind of housing. That's what really matters for our people. I hear even this week how critical the numbers are for people who don't have the right kind of housing, and we need to provide that housing. You know, 703, we're never going to produce that no matter what. I take that point very much on board. We're never going to build that sort of number. And if we do try to build that sort of number, we can imagine what the quality of it will be. Not particularly great. So I accept some of the points that Councillor Garrett has made about in his statement, and we must do this. So we're not here to argue about the entire island plan again. We're simply here to agree these two things. And I must admit, I'm a bit conflicted about it in my mind, because my heart says there's no way that we should be building that kind of, rubbish quality housing for people that don't need it. we need the right kind of housing. And so we're in a difficult position. And so I'm just going to sit and reflect upon that so that people are aware of that.
Thank you. Councillor Bacon.
Thank you, Chair. We're talking about this option C, and I think we've really been bounced into this debate this evening. Councillor Jarman referred to the briefing on the 19th as where this was raised. Well, I was at part of that briefing. I don't really remember it, but in any event, there's been 7 days since then, and some of us didn't see it until late this afternoon. And I don't think that's satisfactory, but I think I've made that point enough now. In passing, I'm interested to see that Councillor Jarman, in support of this, also seems to be accepting the evidence in the IPS now, when I believe he spent quite a lot of the last few years contesting it and was one of those who was supporting the figure of 200 or whatever it was that the previous MP was raising some time ago. But I'm talking about procedure, and perhaps I should stop that, because I think the substance of this debate has actually been dealt with and addressed very effectively by Councillors Molsdell and Garrett. I would simply adopt and underline and support all they have said. As I think Councillor Molsdell said, this has been through a process, challenges have been made, the correct process has been followed, and most interestingly, by the inspector coming back to us, our special position has been recognised, maybe not as we would wish, but we have got an unusual and I think valuable response from the inspector, when the inspector could just have rejected that completely. That's happened before. That happened, I think it was 2011 with our previous iteration of the plan. In fact, we were rejected twice, as I recall. So a hard case has been fought by officers, and I think they've done extremely well to get where we are. And yes, we're not all happy with it, but it's overall a good result, and I suspect the best result we could get at this stage. I did say I wasn't going to say anything about procedure, but I'm still waiting on this amended wording. It wasn't addressed by Councillor Jarman or Councillor Ward. Mr. Fernandez gave an overview of what it might contain, but we still haven't got the correct wording, and we're debating on the basis of a wording we don't know, which worries me. But while I can't vote for option C for that basis, I certainly can't vote for it on the basis of the substance and I would strongly support option A. Thank you.
Councillor Brady.
Thank you, Chairman. I've listened very carefully to what's been sort of said around this chamber tonight. I mean, this is a really, really important issue. You know, no one can deny, I think, that we need on this island, we need extra housing for our young people to stay here, for our families to move up the ladder. Councillor Love's quite eloquently said we need the right sort of housing, but none of us can deny we do actually need to build on this island quite quickly the right sort of housing. Yes, Councillor Mosdale mentioned, Barry Abraham starting this process. Councillor Fuller's worked incredibly hard on this, and we should all be grateful for the work he's put in with officers to get this plan to a situation where we did all agree the plan. Took a long time to get there, going on for about sort of 6 years or so now. And we now have a plan, and a lot of stuff in the plan, on the strategy, is sound. We've all debated it for many, many hours, and it's a sound plan. My issue is, perhaps I'm old school, where we're almost like having it's all got to have a number in it. So we're having a number, a target, effectively set by government, and we haven't got a cat in hell's chance of achieving. I worked in business all my life with targets. To have a target you've got no chance of achieving is a pointless target, really, because it shouldn't be about numbers. It should be about the strategy and the people that we're elected to represent. Option C, I'm going to support, because it gives us the option of going back to the inspectorate and say, our plan, you've accepted our strategy, excellently put together, but rather than roll over and accept the first number in it, just go back and have another nibble, get that number brought down, get it back down to a sensible figure, something we might be able to achieve, because option C gives us that option of having one more go back at people to try and get the number brought down. So I thank people for the work that's gone into the plan. I like the strategy as it stands, but I'm going to vote for option C to give us one further opportunity We're just trying to get a sensible number that we might actually be able to achieve. Because if we don't have, having a number we can't achieve is pointless in my book. So because of that, I'm going to support option C. Thank you.
Councillor Brodie.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I probably agree with pretty much everything that Councillor Garrett said. I think you showed a level of leadership there, Andrew, which is why I asked you to stand as leader at the annual council, but you declined. And I say that with a heavy heart, really, given my antipathy to the political party you represent, but you show a level of common sense and intelligence that is quite often rare in this chamber. In terms of, sorry to say that to the rest of you, but it's fair comment, frankly. This entire process is becoming tedious in the extreme. We spent the best part of £1 million, and some people still want us to keep spending money on that. We've been through a process. It's gone to a quango. Quangos are under the remit of Parliament, as Councillor Garrett pointed out. They've existed for a long time, whether you like them or not. The last government of 14 years never abolished it. Previous Conservative governments and Labour governments never abolished quangos. The planning quango has been there a long time. They've taken an assessment, they've read what we've said, and I think it's fair to say that they have come some way towards us with giving us the option. They could have just rejected it, as has happened in the past. It is now our time to reflect on that, to reflect intelligently on that, and to be realistic. And the bottom line is, if we follow option C, or fortunately option B hasn't come forward and rejected, but if we follow any of those, we're just going to end up being told that this is all going to be rejected unless we spend a lot of more public money on a judicial review. And I just think that's a total and utter nonsense. As it stands, we have the island plan in place. Frankly, I've always been quite relaxed about it, to be honest, because it's about the only way we could deliver any housing because of the tilted balance. And the irony is that if you agree to option A, that you've got some hope of the tilted balance disappearing within 3 years. Some hope. You've got no hope if you go down the route of option C. So therefore, I'm not going to say any more than that, but I do think, I think Councillor Mosdale spoke sensibly as well about this, and I know that puts it perhaps in a difficult position with some members of her group, but I hope there are others in her group who see that the common sense way forward here is to support the other option when we debate that, to reject this one, which is certainly, as I alluded to earlier, has not empowered the island. I haven't had a chance to talk to anybody about this. Nobody at all. I got it 1 hour before. I understand it was on a minor media website on the White, which I hardly ever look at. And I know certainly my residents rarely look at it. They'd rather look at the Island Echo for strange reasons, but you know that's the one they'd rather look at. So I've had no opportunity to consult with. I still try to find out where the empowering islanders are in this group. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Lilly.
Just like to, I mean, I totally support what Councillor Brodie has said and Councillor Mosdale and Councillor Garrett. I cannot support option C. And my particular reasons, which I think have been outlined by my colleagues, is we employ planning officers who work under statutory planning law legislation, which they have to work within a process. And what we've been doing over the last few years is to get a new plan. They have been the ones who've had to negotiate, and we get to the stage it has to go to the planning inspectors. They come back. Option C isn't relevant to the inspectors. They wrote a letter saying you have two options. They didn't say that you can come and put in another option. The way I read at the C, it's a political option. It is up to our MPs. It is up to a leader of the council to discuss with the politicians, which in this case is the Labour government, to actually look at our circumstances. which actually they're doing. This doesn't actually answer what the inspector has given. And all the inspectors will do, because they don't through, is they will just opt for option B, because basically C would then disqualify us because we haven't responded in the time frame. They extended the time frame to us to make a decision so we can have this meeting. And they would just say, okay, you've rejected it, you've got to go back to square one. Where's the £1 million, as Councillor Brodie has said, that we will have to actually go back to it and expect our officers to do this when they have done their utmost to actually argue this through, I think is cruel. And I've got some knowledge of judicial review. It takes a long time and actually a lot of money to actually not get what you necessarily want. Thank you.
Councillor Spink.
Thank you, Chair. I think just about everyone in this room wants to build the housing that islanders need. We all want to, I think most of us anyway, certainly I, and I know most of us, if not all, want to concentrate on social housing for rent. We don't want to build, most of us, I think, huge numbers of houses, which will cause all sorts of sociological, as it were, hardship for our island that Councillor Cameron has dealt with, our doctors, etc., overcrowded already, let alone if we build that number of housing. We're closing schools because our birth rate is going down. Yet this government chooses to use out-of-date data to make us build more houses. It's a nonsense, quite frankly. It's been said by Councillor Garrett that if we don't have a draft plan, it's a developer's paradise. Not his exact words, but that's about it. But the protection in the plan to stop a developer's paradise, those protections will not be implemented. They will not protect us if we remain or go straight back into the tilted balance. We cannot, despite what Councillor Garrett says, choose where we build the housing if we are in the tilted balance. We know that in our planning committee. We are advised that by planning officers. We are selling the Isle of Wight down the line if we vote for this. Now, there is a principle of law that you shouldn't set people or bodies an unachievable target and then penalise them when they can't meet it. And my view is there's now a growing number of local authorities who do not accept being put in this position and do want to judicially review the decision to impose this number of houses on us. Now, and on them as well. I believe we should take that route because I believe also that it's what our people want and what our people deserve. And that it won't necessarily be as expensive as we fear if there are a large number of local authorities taking the point and sharing the cost, or alternatively, crowdfunded by a large number of the public who support that course. And I shall be voting for option C, because in my view, it may be that it's been, because in my view, it's the option that I believe is best for the island, will result in the housing that we and our public want and deserve. Thank you.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I was reluctant to speak because so much has been said by my colleagues here, but I wanted to add a couple of things. First of all, I want to say thank you to everybody who's spoken. Councillor Cameron has made an excellent first speech, and there is no doubt there is a lot of material in there which is worth listening to. Councillor Brodie has made his points very clear, as has Councillor Brady. Shows my age, I can't even remember everybody's name immediately. I do apologise. This plan for me staggers because, of course, they have taken an axe to what I was so desperate to see, which is the protection of ancient woodland. However, we have to consider the plan as a whole. Option C is not a rational argument. It uses words like arbitrary and undeliverable. Those are value judgments. They may be correct, but they are value judgments. It is a political statement, I'm afraid. What we have in A and B, and the only option which we wish to take is A, is the rational, obvious arguments. We have option A. It is the only one that everybody agrees is rational, because B is discounted by everybody. Therefore, I have to say option A is the only one we can go for, and therefore we should see option C dismissed.
Councillor Jones-Evans.
Thank you, Chair. Vice Chair. Yeah, I think there's been some really helpful debate in the chamber this evening, and it's good that we can put our different points of view forward. But we have, for me, it's about remembering this has been about an 8 years journey, £850,000, and our island plan, our new island plan, is not just about housing numbers, and we get so fixated on the housing numbers. We'll build the amount of houses that we're able, and what land supply we've got. We already know that officers will be working on actually doing a land supply study and where we're able to build houses, and that will be really important information moving forward. But 3 years ago, I mean, I sat and I spoke when we were debating it in April 22. And I went through the island plan and said all the brilliant things that were in the island plan. They weren't to do with housing, to do with our tourist economy, to do with our town centres, to do with the environment, to do with our coastal protection, all these other things that are contained within this plan. And my then cabinet colleague was sat next to me, and I turned around and said, because they voted not to move forward. And I said, you've actually done the island disservice there. And they had a different view, but I'm firmly of the view that I was right, because we've lost 3 years. We would have had this plan in place and those lower numbers. Now we are facing higher numbers, 700 and odd. And if we go for option C, we're even going to be more exposed and maybe having 1,100 homes. And nobody wants that. Nobody in this chamber wants that. So I'm firmly of the belief we need to take the olive branch, if you like, that the inspectors have given us to tweak our plan. We've got a way forward. We can move forward and able to protect our island and not open ourselves up to more housing and to maybe lose some of the excellent policies that we've got. We can start using these now at planning committee, because the island plan will be further down the road. We need to remember that as well, those that sit on planning committee, because we're absolutely stuck at the moment. So I'm going to be, as I did 3 years ago, I'll be supporting this plan to move forward with the recommendations from the planning inspector of the things that we have to change. So that is my firm position, that I'll be going with option A.
Are there any more? I would just put in my 2 pence. I cannot see how you can make rulings, etc., which are undeliverable. And I was delighted to hear Councillor Spink mention the fact that if you have tried to make something happen that is impossible, it then is impossible. The island basically need housing for our younger people to keep them here. As I've said many times, without younger people staying on the island, we will not attract inward investment. We desperately need to keep our people here. If there's nowhere for them to live, then obviously they depart the island. And I think the one thing that has been missing throughout the whole debate is the fact that we do not have a far higher proportion of affordable housing when planning permissions are granted. At the moment, it basically stands at a third. To me, that's ridiculous. It should be a minimum of 50%. That is a personal opinion. Whether the officers would agree that's possible, feasible, I'm sure the developers will have a fit. I would also like to add thanks to the officers, I will not name names, for all their work over the last 3 or 4 years. They have produced an exceptional report. Whether some of us agree with bits of it or not is almost immaterial. An awful lot of work has gone into it. So, Chief Executive, please pass on our thanks. I would now ask Councillor Ward to sum up. Hold on.
Can I, sorry to interrupt, Chair. In terms of the comment that Councillor Bacon made in terms of the alteration, if we can I suggest something, or do you want to? Yeah, it's not my motion, but I'll suggest it. I mean, just after on the last sentence where it says delegate any decision ongoing, I would just add that is not reserved to full council, to policy, finance, resources committee. Yeah, it says delegate, last sentence, it says delegate any decision ongoing that is not reserved to full council. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, any decision ongoing that is not reserved to full councils. And policy. So just in terms of process, Councillor Ward, if you can agree that alteration, and the seconder can agree that alteration, and then councillors agree that that's the alteration, and that becomes the motion that you're going to be summing up on and then voting on. So do you agree? And full council? Yeah. And full council? Full council agrees the alteration? Yeah.
Do we now go to the vote? No, Councillor
No,
Ward.
just
Councillor Ward, if you would like to do your summing up, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, members. What I would like to say is, there's been a lot of debate, and people have made suggestions that I was thrown into this, etc., etc. I would like to tell you that I read the paper in detail. I read option A, I read option B, and I concluded option A was the best option. Okay. However, the 703 houses, buildings, which you all admit is impossible, okay? You don't want it. The officers don't want it. It wasn't their figure. This was forced upon them by the government. The public don't want it. So all of those of you who are going to vote for 703 are ignoring your public. I just take that on board. You are ignoring your public and undermining your officers. I would like to congratulate the officers for the fantastic job they've done. I know how hard they've worked on this, and I support not their original I do support their 453, but I also support an awful lot that is in the plan. It's a bloody good plan, you know. It's just the 703 we all disagree about, but you have decided to ignore that. I find that shameful. Thank you, Chairman.
We will now go to the vote, and it will be a named vote as agreed earlier.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to read out the names. If councillors can indicate for, against, or abstain. Councillor Adams. Councillor Andre.
Against.
Councillor Bacon.
Against.
Councillor Blake. For. Councillor Brading.
For.
Councillor Brodie.
Against.
Councillor Cameron.
For.
Councillor Churchman.
For.
Councillor Christensen.
Against.
Councillor Downer.
Against.
Councillor Drew.
Abstain.
Councillor Fuller.
Against.
Councillor Garrett,
Against.
Councillor Gladwin,
Against.
Councillor Jarman, Councillor Jones Evans,
Against.
Councillor Jordan,
Against.
Councillor Lever. Oh, right, sorry. Councillor Lilly,
Against.
Councillor Love,
Against.
Councillor Lucioni,
Against.
Councillor McLean,
Against.
Councillor Mosdell,
Against.
Councillor Nicholson. Sorry. Councillor Oliver,
Against.
Councillor PC Wilcox,
Against.
Councillor Price, Councillor Quigley, Councillor Quirk, Councillor Ray Redrup, not here. Councillor Sarah Redrup,
Against.
Councillor Robertson,
4.
Councillor Spink,
4.
Councillor Stevens,
Against.
Councillor Stewart,
Against.
Councillor Ward.
4.
Shall we get out, Chair?
Yes.
Okay, the result is 9-4, 21 against, 1 abstention. Thank you, Chair.
So the motion has fallen. We now go to the next motion, which was 5. Yeah. Councillor Bacon, you have 5 minutes to speak on your motion.
Chair, I think we've had a debate already. I would suggest we move straight to the vote.
Sorry, who was the first seconder? All of you, all of you, all of you. Right, so does anybody, sorry. Councillor Robertson.
Yeah, I'd like to say a few words. I'd like to put it on record why I'm not going to vote for option A.
We've moved to the vote.
I can't speak. I haven't said move to the vote.
Yes, it goes to the vote now.
Can you just tell me how that happened, that it was forced to a vote and a councillor can't express their view on a motion that's been put to the council?
In the Constitution.
Councillor Brodie. Councillor Brodie, you were going to say?
Has to be a vote on whether we're going to have a named vote.
So we will go to the vote and it will be a named vote.
On what authority? On what authority am I being denied an option to speak on this? I'm only
Chair,
asking.
Point of order. If you
Yes.
Right, having taken advice from the monitoring officer, councillor Robertson, would you like to put forward your view, please?
I just want to say, and I'm amazed that there are groans around this chamber
Point
when
of
someone
order.
is.
Point of order. Get the vote in.
One at a time, please. Councillor Brodie.
The Constitution very clearly says if there's a proposal to move to the vote, unless it's done by acclamation, you need to vote on whether to vote, whether you're going to move to the vote. So you can't just automatically assume because an MP demands it that he can speak. You have to put it to us democratically. Always be guided by democracy. We'll be all right. Thank you, Chair.
So, according to the monitoring officer, we should move to the vote.
Take a vote.
Take a vote.
Take a vote. Take a vote.
To say you've had a proposal to move to the future, I'm going to ask the chamber to vote on that.
Right, the chamber obviously have agreed to vote on the proposal. So we now move to the vote and a named vote.
Yeah, no, has it been agreed, Simon, come on. Has it been carried? Has the move to the vote been carried?
Needs to be taken because there was only four against and abstain. The vote wasn't taken. It's a clear majority. Councillors allowed you.
To move to the vote, yeah?
The vote should be taken.
To move to the vote. Yeah, don't tell me. Chair, if I can just clarify, what's happening here is that councillors are now going to vote on whether to move to a vote. Yeah. So if we can have indication for, please. Move to the vote. Against?
Majority.
Abstention? Abstentions? Two. Yeah.
So we now will move to the vote. Now, is it agreed that it is a named vote?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Again, this is if councillors can indicate for, against or abstain. Councillor Adams. Councillor Andre.
For.
Councillor Bacon.
For.
Councillor Blake.
Against.
Councillor Brading.
Abstain.
Councillor Brodie.
Sorry, for.
Councillor Cameron.
Against.
Councillor Churchman.
Against.
Councillor Christensen.
For.
Councillor Downer.
For.
Councillor Drew.
Abstain.
Councillor Fuller.
For.
Councillor Garrett.
For.
Councillor Gladwin.
For.
Councillor Jarman.
Against.
Councillor Jones Evans.
For.
Councillor Jordan.
For.
Councillor Love.
For.
Councillor Lucioni.
For.
Councillor McLean.
For.
Councillor Mosdale.
For.
Councillor Oliver.
For.
Councillor PC Wilcox.
For.
Councillor Quirk.
Abstain.
Councillor Sarah Redrup.
For.
Councillor Robertson.
Against.
Councillor Spink.
Against.
Councillor Stevens.
For.
Councillor Stewart.
For.
Councillor Ward. Did I call Councillor Drew? Councillor Lilly. Councillor Lilly, apologies, Councillor Lilly.
4.
4. Did I call Councillor Drew? Thank you. The result is 21 for, 6 against, 4 abstentions. Thank you, Chair.
A confirmed vote as read out by the monitoring officer, and I now close the meeting. Hold on. That is the close of the EGM meeting. We will now continue with what is left over from Wednesday, last Wednesday's full council meeting. So the EGM is now closed and we are back to full council. Oh, would councillors like a break? Right, will it 10 minutes? Fine, if you come back in 10 minutes, please. Thank you. Would you please be seated so we can continue? Thank you. I will now hand over to the monitoring officer.
Thank you, Chair. This items make appointments to the outside bodies. Councillors should have the sheet in front of them. Just by way of explanation, the red marked ones are where there is a contest. There's more councillors than places. And then we've got some where we have updated the list. So I'll take councillors through that. What I suggest we do is that we do a block vote for the ones that are not contested and the ones you have in front of you already. So it's an easy vote. We are also going to, unless there's a request for a named vote, we're just going to ask for a show of hands. We're not going to take councillors through the named vote process. But where there are more than, if there are 3 candidates, then we're going to have to do a runoff process. But again, we'll try and make it as lean as possible. So just taking councillors through the list, I'll just go through the red ones and the ones that have been updated. So we've got the adoption panel. We have 2 councillors, Cameron and Andre, for those. What I would ask is that if any one of those 2 councillors want to withdraw, then, you know, by all means do, then we won't have a contest. But if you don't want to withdraw, it's entirely your choice. We'll run a contest. So this one's for the adoption panel chair. So do both candidates still want to, yeah? Yeah. Okay, so we'll take a vote on a show of hands, please, councillors. So the adoption panel, we've got, it's for Councillor Cameron. So vote for her. Okay, vote for Councillor Andre. And if anyone wants to indicate abstentions, no? This one abstention, one, yeah. Okay, so just going to the one where there's been an update, and that's the Armed Forces Champion. We now have Councillor Dorr named as the Armed Forces Champion. I mean, all that will be done through a block vote. Armed Forces Day Parade Organising Committee, again, Councillor Dorr, there's an update here. For the Association of Public Excellence, there's no one. Okay, yeah, in terms of the Association for Public Sector Excellence, there is no nomination that we have. I don't know whether there is anyone in the chamber who'd want to. Is there a seconder for that? Okay, can we take a vote on that? Well, you don't need to. You don't need to. You don't need to. You don't need to. Apologies. Apologies. The next one is the Augusta Wilder Almshouse Charity. We have no nomination for that body. Is there a nomination for that?
Can I suggest that you check if that organisation is still functioning?
We can, yes, Chair. I mean, we can, assuming that it's not desperately needed to have a councillor on there, I'm sure that can be done and updated for the next meeting. The Biosphere Steering Committee, we have 1 place and we have 2 nominations. You've got Councillor Spink and Councillor Bacon. Again, if one of the councillors wants to withdraw, then that makes it easy. If not, then we'll run a vote. No one's withdrawing? Okay. Can I suggest that we take a vote? So for the Biosphere Steering Committee, vote for Councillor Spink. And a vote for councillor Bacon. Yeah, assuming there are no abstentions there. Again, now for the Civil Military Partnership Board, we have no nominations. It should be an Armed Forces champion, so mine's blank. Would it be councillor Daw? Yeah, would be councillor Daw. Councillor Daw.
I had my hand up so that I could speak. Councillor Daw. Thank you, Laura.
Okay, this one's a bit more complicated. This is the Community Action Isle of Wight Board of Trustees. There are 2 members and we have 4 nominations. So again, I mean, the nominations we have are Councillor Spink, Councillor Love, Councillor Lilly and Councillor Critchinson. So again, my comment is, does anyone want, of the nominees want to withdraw, or do you want to run a process? Right. So we have 3 for 2 positions. Yeah. So let's run just a straight out vote. So councillor Spink.
We have to vote for more than one, or just voting for one? Sorry.
You're just voting for councillor Spink at the moment.
What for are we?
Yeah, I'll
No,
go
no,
through
sorry.
them. I'll go through them.
You can vote for more than one person. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we deal with councillor Spink first. I mean, I'm trying to prevent a runoff process, but yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like to.
yeah. Sorry, I missed what you said.
We can.
Yeah, yeah.
You can vote.
Yeah. So councillor Spink, you got that? Okay.
You've got 11.
I'd like to. Can we have a revote, please?
Councillor Love.
Sorry, do you have a recount on councillor Spink?
Can we have a councillor Spink? No, no, we can vote for more than one person.
Yes, as chair, could you hold on, please? As chair, let's make it quite plain. You can vote for 2 people out of the 3. So, as I said, you can vote councillor Spink, Love, Lily, but you have 2 votes. Carry on, thank you. Well, you can vote. You can vote twice, and if we start again, we're starting with councillor Spink.
Okay, let's do that again. Thank you, Chair. Councillor Spink. Councillor Love.
It's 27, Chair.
And councillor Lilly.
Two, three, four, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 19, Chair.
Love and Lily.
It's Love and Lily, yeah.
Love and Lily.
Yeah. Is that right, Marie? Yeah, yeah.
I've pronounced councillors Love and councillor Lily, the 2 L's. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. In terms of the next one, number 12, Corporate Parenting Board, we have a number of nominations there and a few additions. We've got at 5, we've got Councillor Blake, who's been nominated, Councillor Price, and we've got one blank for a councillor, one blank missing. But that's
Chair, we
yes, yeah. We've got in terms of the list you've got in front of you, there are 2 additions. Number 5, there's Councillor Blake. This is the Corporate Parenting Board. You've got Councillor Blake who's been nominated and Councillor Price.
Chair, if I may, it was pointed out to me by Councillor Brading that historically the chair of Children's Services or the cabinet member for would sit on that committee. In fact, chair. Is he on there as an additional to the 7, or is he to be included in the 7? Because if so, the 7th, I'd like to nominate Councillor Brading.
There is a spare seat on there. So is that Councillor
Excuse me,
Brading?
I can assist. As I was the cabinet member and was involved in setting up the new corporate parenting board, the chair, the cabinet member sat de facto as chair, and then we were looking for additional members to the chair. I don't know if I assume the chair of the Children's Committee sits in the same role essentially as the cabinet member, therefore it'd be looking for 7 members in addition to that person.
Thank you for that clarification, Councillor Baker. In that case, can we nominate Councillor Churchman to that 7th spot, please?
Just to confirm, Chair, so then there are 8 members, 8 councillor members of that group, is that correct? Including the
So in terms of the Corporate Parenting Board, it'll be Councillor Brading as well as the 7. So we've got, in terms of the additions, we've got Councillor Blake, Councillor Price, and Councillor Churchman. Yeah. Okay. And in terms of the Economic Development Board, we have 3 members available, and we've got a nomination for Councillor Jarman, which is the 4th. So this is strictly contested. Three.
Out of 4 names.
There's 3. Yeah. So Councillor Jarman ended up on it. Okay. All right. So. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. In terms of the Economic Development Board, the Constitution provides that the leader appoints those members. At the moment, we've got Councillor Jones-Evans, Councillor Stewart, Councillor Jordan, and Councillor Jarman to put his name forward. So I'd ask the leader whether who he wants to confirm in those roles as it's your appointment.
Thank you. Monitoring Officer, my choice is Councillor Jones-Evans, Councillor Stewart, and Councillor Jordan.
So those are the appointments there. Moving on to number 17, the Hampshire Police and Crime Panel. There is a slight adjustment there. For Councillor Jarman is been replaced with Councillor Blake. I understand that's agreed. Yeah. That's number 17. Councillor Ward. The next one, which we need to 18, there are 4 members and there are 4 nominations. I think that one's okay. Yeah, they're there, that's right. That's right. Number 21, the Isle of Wight Health and Care Partnership. Councillor Mosdale. 19. Well, there's one gap. Yeah. This is the Integrated Care Partnership Board. Okay. Number 21, the Isle of Wight Health and Care Partnership. Again, in addition there, Councillor Mosdale. Number 22, the Isle of Wight Lifeboat Board. Says normally chair of full council, but I understand this appointment was made by the Life Board when Councillor Love was still the chairman. But we've got 2 nominations. We've got Councillor Love and we've got Councillor Dorr. I think.
Just clarify, 2 weeks ago, I was made vice president of the Lifeboat Association. So I needed to check whether if that was the position that was made or whether it was for the person. And it's for the person, but I don't see any block for a second person. That's something you need to speak to them about. It's their organisation, not mine.
So, so there are 2 nominations. There are 2 places. Yeah.
No. If I may, just to clarify, Councillor Love, what you're saying is that you have a position on the Lifeboat Board in your own right as Carl Love, who happens to be a councillor. There is also a position for a member of this council who would be a member in the position of president, and therefore this council needs 1 nomination to fill that. As your name is currently in that list, are you saying you're withdrawing your name from that?
I still think it's still a bit messy in terms of you need to speak to the Lifeboat Association, but I'm quite happy to continue in either way. It's whatever you want to do.
Yes, Chair, can I suggest what we do is, because this is the Lifeboat Board and their appointment, can I suggest that we just clarify with them what they want to do and bring an update to the next?
I think they want a person from the council to be elected. That's what, so from the council perspective, that's what I think. It's normally the vice chair.
Yeah, so we'll just ask them, sorry.
Councillor PC Wilcox.
Well, I was going to say, as past chair of this council, that title came to me, and I used to attend there. And I think Councillor Critchinson is going to say the same. So when you were chair of this council, you were the president. And I'm really pleased for Councillor Love that he's vice president, which means that he can't really represent us as president and be vice president at that thing. So I presume Councillor Ian Dorr, as the chair of the council, would carry on the normal position that we've done for years. Did you do it when you were? Yeah, you did.
No.
So, yeah, just to clarify.
I need to clarify because it's not president. The president lies with somebody else. There's one person. It is definitely vice president.
I was going to clarify that I don't think it's president. I think it's vice president. I think they also have several vice presidents of the association. So it's not just one vice president. So I think double check, but I think Councillor Love and Councillor Dorr could be vice presidents.
Thank you, through Chair. Yeah, we'll check with the organisation and revert. So the next addition is for the Isle of Wight Local Access Forum. We have Councillor Churchman nominated. The Isle of Wight Local Pension Board, we have Councillor Fuller nominated for that. That was Councillor Churchman. The Isle of Wight. Yeah, that is true. I've got that cancelled out actually. Yeah, there is one vacancy there for the Isle of Wight Access
Forum.
Yeah,
So
forum.
who's going to take that?
Is there a nomination for? Okay, for the joint consultative meeting working group,
Chairman,
Councillor Fuller. Yeah.
Chairman, you mentioned that I am the nominated person from the Isle of Wight Council on the Isle of Wight Local Pension Board. I no longer want to hold that position on the pension board. And I don't know why it was mentioned that I was actually, because I'm stepping down from that, allowing somebody else to have the opportunity to fulfil that role.
Right, so do we have any nominations for the pension board, please? Don't all run and jump. Well, at the moment, I'm afraid it looks as though it's vacant.
Chair, I'm just mindful that I'm trying to encourage the reform people to take some seats. Perhaps this might be a seat for them. We're elected to represent, aren't we?
So there's yes, Chair, through you. I mean, there's no nomination for that. We'll just have to consider it and bring an update to the next meeting if anyone shows interest.
I'll take it.
Point of order, he can't.
I can't, I'm sorry, I'm on the pension committee and I didn't realise there was a conflict, apologies. I would have done.
Somebody just explains what's involved. I'm not volunteering because, yeah, because I'm retiring in a year and I think somebody needs to commit to it for a period of time, but somebody needs to explain what's involved because it is important. Thank you.
Could I ask Councillor Jarman to comment on that as he is the chair of the pension committee?
You could, Chair. So the pension board has a different regulatory status to the pension committee. The pension board is responsible for much of the policy decisions that we take and has oversight in terms of the actions of the pension committee and its regulatory construct. It has a different training regime, which is more onerous and required by statute, which on the committee is not the case. But we do have a very extensive series of training modules available for people to study with examinations at the end of each one of them on a modular basis. So I'd strongly recommend the position of joining the pension board, and that we really do need a member on there who's going to be dedicated to the team and willing to undertake the training.
Councillor Fuller.
Yeah, having held that position, in all seriousness, it is a very, very important position to hold. There are a lot of changes that are being made by central government with respect to pension boards and how pension boards are funded, and it needs to have somebody with the right kind of insight to be able to dig into that, and also to be able to ask the right questions at the right time and have the time to be able to do the relevant training. The training is very, very onerous, and it needs to be it needs a very committed councillor to be able to do that. That has the time to do that.
Do we have anybody who's prepared to put themselves forward?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So can I suggest we move on for now and bring an update report to the next meeting? Maybe we'll get some interest by then. Number 25, the joint consultative meeting working group. We have nominations, but we have one gap, basically, one vacancy.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Mosdale for that last space, please.
Decided it would be good to give us some political balance before they kick me out the group.
Yes, Councillor Andre.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to nominate Councillor Bacon.
For which one are we on?
Which one are we?
It says political balance, and you've got Councillor Lever as a member of your group, Councillor Lilly is a member of the Alliance. I thought you were.
Yes, councillors. I mean, I do recall seeing this in the constitution, and there is a requirement for proportionality, although it's not strict committee proportionalities. The constitution still talks about proportionality. So can I suggest that we take this away and kind of do some figures and bring an update?
Yeah, it doesn't take a genius to work out that currently there's no Conservatives on that committee, and we are the largest political group in this chamber. So I therefore suggest that Councillor Mosdale is the one nominated as the 7th position.
Councillor Brodie, did you want to say something?
I agree with Councillor.
I mean, that's fair enough. I think that the figures work out. So, Councillor Brodie, Councillor Mosdale. Okay, the next one is number 29, the National Landscape Steering Group. There are 2 members available, and there are 3 nominations. We've got Cameron, Bacon, and Christensen. So unless one's going to withdraw, we'll run a vote for it. Yeah, run a vote. Okay, can we go to? Yeah, 2 votes. Yeah.
Could I remind people you have 2 votes? Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Cameron.
Chair.
Councillor Bacon.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
Councillor Christensen.
12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, Chair.
There's Christensen and Bacon, yeah?
So it's 17 each and 1 at 20. So what do?
There's a tie, yeah?
Yeah, 2 at 17 and 1 at 20.
Yeah, so the tied one is.
Stays. So what do we vote?
Is there a
Yeah,
casting vote there
You can do a casting
from the
vote,
chair?
I can do a casting vote.
if you want.
Oh my God.
I mean, the chair's considering whether to use a casting vote.
Vote for Cameron. My casting vote will go to councillor Cameron. Sorry, my casting vote will go to councillor Cameron.
Okay, number 31, which is the public health consultant's appointment. We have councillor Mosdell nominated for that.
Yeah,
So number 32, Ride Neighbourhood Board. We have 2 members and we have 3 nominations. We've got Jordan, Lucioni and Lily. So that's for the Ride Neighbourhood Board. Again, there are 2 members there. There's 3 members who are nominated.
Can I clarify?
Councillor Lilly.
Can I clarify that I've been told we had this difficulty last year that Jordan and Lucioni were taken onto the board for a period of time. I'd just like to clarify that from you, the monitoring officer, regarding that. We had this problem last year. I'm happy to withdraw, but I want to make sure that it is correct that we don't have to have a vote tonight. If we
So my understanding.
Hold on, please. Could let the monitoring officer.
My understanding is because we went round the block on this some time ago. My understanding of this is that it's a council appointment, so the council votes on it. However, having said that, the board itself has indicated who they think should be on it. So, but ultimately it's council's vote in terms of placing a councillor onto that board, is my understanding.
Sorry, I need to clarify because I don't think that's what happened. Is that the board decides who they want to sit on it, and we had to ratify that. That's my understanding.
Yeah, I agree with you, councillor Love, that as you said, the board had to ratify the 2 people that were put forward.
So, Chair, have they indicated who they want us to ratify? That's the first question.
Does anybody? Councillor Lucioni.
As you may know, when the government changed, the priorities changed, so we were waiting for that. And about 6 weeks ago, it was ratified, and we were ratified on that committee again, and it went back to government, and it was accepted.
So,
could I add another opinion? Last year, we clarified absolutely that you can't take away the discretion of this council to put an outside appointment that it chooses. I happen to support Jordan and Lucioni continuing, so it's not about that. But this council decides it's outside appointments. It can hear a recommendation if it likes it, if it wants to, but we decide. And it's up to Councillor Lilly whether he wants to withdraw or not. Councillor Jordan, I support you and Lucioni continuing, so it's not against you.
Thank you, Joe.
Time.
Thank you, John. I appreciate your support and your help and work on the board. I do differ in your analysis of that. The board itself sets, as you know, because you sit on it, sets its own term of reference. And whilst it asks that there are 2 representatives from the Isle of Wight Council, nonetheless, the board make those own decisions about its board, its work, and its membership. And we had this discussion. You're right. We had this discussion last year. There is no change. I spoke with the chair of the board today, and there is no change in his view and his decision. There are no spaces to fill on the board. That's his view.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, just in terms of Councillor Robinson, you are right. We considered this last time, and we you know, the view of the board was quite important, but I think what we finally decided was that as this was an outside appointment, it was the council who made that appointment. Obviously, you've got to consider what the board wants, you know, because you don't work against them. But technically speaking, the view we took last time was that the council made the appointment. So we have
I will withdraw, but of that, but I do feel that I have huge issues with the Ryde neighbourhood, well, now the Ryde neighbourhood board, and it's a voice of the people of Ryde, and I have a problem with it. But I will withdraw to not create any more fuss about it.
Councillor Lilly, could I say thank you for that? So the two representatives will be Councillor Jordan and Councillor Lucioni.
okay, Chair, thank you. Now to 35, the SEND Partnership Board. There is one member and there were two nominations, but we have now agreed that it goes to the Chair of Children's Services by default. Councillor Brading reminded us of that. So Councillor Love has agreed and Councillor Andre have agreed to withdraw their nomination, and Councillor Brading takes the nomination. However, there is a however. We are going to double check the constitution just to make sure that it's clear that Councillor Brading is the one who follows the appointment. So we will bring that as an update as well. So the next one we have is the Solent Forum. One member, three nominations. We've got Councillor Spink, we've got Councillor Stewart and Councillor Fuller. This is for the Solent Forum. Okay.
Councillor Stewart has withdrawn his nomination. Thank you.
Okay, so this is a simple. So unless there are other withdrawals, the vote is for Councillor Spink and Councillor Fuller. So shall I take a vote on that?
Chairman, I'm quite happy to step aside for Councillor Spink as well.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller.
Okay, so the next one. The next one is 38, the Solent Transport for South Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. One member, there's one member available, one member appointment, and there are two nominations. We've got Councillor Stewart and Councillor Fuller. So unless one of them is going to withdraw.
I withdraw.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. So it will be Councillor Fuller.
Okay, for number 39, what members? Well, there's only Councillor Fuller. There's that's that.
That's the lot. Oh no. 42.
Okay, the number 42 is the Standing Conference on Problems Associated with Coastline. One member available. There are two nominations. We've got Councillor Cameron and Councillor Fuller nominated. Unless one wants to withdraw, we'll run a vote for it. Yep.
Chairman, I'm quite happy, as I am chairman of CIVCA, I'm quite happy to withdraw for Councillor Cameron. And also just to give a little bit, you know, we do have sessions where we talk about longshore drift of pebbles, and I'm sure that Councillor Cameron would love to do that. And I've offered to meet with her to talk about some of the fun things that we get up to at Scope back, if you haven't read my report already.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller.
Number 45, there are two available slots. We've got Councillor Spink, who's already on your list, and we have Councillor Blake, who's nominated for. This is the Yarmouth Isle of Wight Harbour Advisory Committee. Yeah. And then finally, we've got number 46, the Youth Justice Management Board. We've got one member. So this one's, we've got two nominations. We've got Councillor Andre and Councillor Lilly, so this is contested. So unless, this is for the Youth Justice Management Board. So unless one of those two withdraw, we'll run a vote. So it is Andre and Lilly.
I'll withdraw.
Councillor Lilly has withdrawn. Thank you.
That's all, Chair. So in terms of the other, the ones we haven't covered specifically, that's done by block vote.
Councillor Love.
Yes, Chair. So I just want to just draw out just for a second now we've finished all, so the lessons that we've learned from this tonight and the previous meeting moving forward in how long it's taken to do this process tonight and the process previously. We need to do, before we get to next year's annual meeting, we need to do a review of how we do this and operate this, because it is a lot of time spent on organisational things when we need to be spending our time on the business of the council. That's all I'm saying really, is that how long we spent here tonight? At least an hour on this, and we didn't get through the agenda before. So that tells us that our annual meetings are not going to achieve what we want to achieve in one session without changing something. And so that's what I'm asking people to think about and officers to work on. There needs to be a different format for this.
Thank you, Councillor Love. It's quite correct. Perhaps leaders,
assuming that we're here,
leaders of the groups will remember this for next year. I will now close the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for your perseverance and your attendance. I close the meeting at 20.
Have we voted?